few years ago, of course, I had already been an In-N-Out fan, but a few years ago, I saw that In-N-Out around San Francisco refused to like check, was it vaccine status? California at the time said in order to go into a restaurant, you have to show your vaccine card, which is insane to think about. And the In-N-Out locations were like, no. And even the head of legal here was like, we're not doing that.
Yeah.
Right?
Right. Yeah.
So tell me what went into that decision.
Well, there were so many pressures and just hoops we were having to jump through. You know, you've got to do this. They have to wear a mask. You have to put this plastic thing up between us and our customers. And it was really terrible, you know. And I look back and I'm like, man, maybe we should have just pushed even harder on some of that stuff and dealt with all the legal backlash. But that was definitely where we held the line. Like, we're not policing our customers, you know. I mean, I think of my uncle saying, you know, we're not going to serve them something that we wouldn't eat. We want to give them the best. And it's like, I wouldn't do that to anyone. You know, I don't want this and I don't expect them to want it. So, yeah.
That time, you know, and a lot of times, you know, I've been at a space where I've basically been exploring and kind of sort of like documenting what happened during the pandemic era. But one of the things that was playing out in the pandemic era at that particular time was that there was this massive government overreach when it came to different states. And I believe that was, you know, once you have to start living through it, when you're talking about 2020, 2021, so on and so forth, there was this massive government overreach where they were basically dictating what people could and couldn't do. You can't travel. You couldn't go to work unless you took the jab. You couldn't, you know, do any of the things that was meaningful to you, even go and get something to eat. I remember, because see, the one thing that Detroit never shut down unless just the whole grid had went down was the casinos. And if you were a person that went into a casino, so for example, I remember when they started to open up Vegas and then when they started to open up the casinos in Detroit, I walked past, and if you looked at like the dice tables and the blackjack tables and stuff like that, there was all of these big old barriers and plastic barriers. And if you went into a restaurant, it was similar. And that massive government overreach in a lot of these liberal places was the precursor to what you're starting to see today as far as the In-N-Out CEO saying that they're looking to now move over to Nashville, their headquarters, instead of staying in California. Now, that does not mean that In-N-Out burger locations are not still going to be in California. Here in Vegas, I'm in Vegas right now. There's a few different locations that I know of In-N-Out burger. I actually like In-N-Out. I like I don't remember what's like this sauce, this special goobity gob sauce that they use. And if you've never had it before, you know, it's kind of a novelty or whatever, so on and so forth. But my point is that when you've seen this massive government overreach, and this is one of the reasons why you have to be careful of who you vote for, because these people are not business leaders. These people don't care about the businesses. They are looking to maintain power, and they are selling out to whoever it is that they can sell out to in order to maintain, right? I'll give you an example. I believe that the Biden administration's implementation of allowing for illegal migrants to come into the United States of America was also a bigger play. But in order for them to implement that, they also needed a buy-in from other Democrats lower on the totem pole, the Chicagos, the Los Angeleses, the Denvers, the New York, so on and so forth. And you've seen Eric Adams actually revolt against that. But in order for them to get certain things off, they had to have buy-in. And so you've seen, I believe, a coup. And this is one of the reasons why Trump was not elected, because the pandemic had a massive impact on what was going on from an election perspective that then, you know, allowed for the states to basically, in my opinion, collude to make sure that they got him out of office. And now everything is coming full circle because you see business owners like the lady from In-N-Out saying that now she's looking to move the headquarters from, I believe, Irvine, California, over into Nashville, and then expand in the South.
He came down and saw Irvine and all of that and was just like, this is not us. This is not our roots. This is not my dad. And he wanted to move everyone back to Baldwin Park. So kind of did a hybrid. He moved a lot of people back to Baldwin Park, but Irvine continued on and continued to grow. And then, my dad died a handful of years later. So he never got to bring everyone back here and close Irvine. So Irvine now, we went from having a couple floors to nearly the whole building, So my vision for a long time has been to have, these two offices under one roof. And so that's basically what's going to happen. We're building an office in Franklin. So I'm actually moving out there. And
Wow. How do you feel about that? You're like a California girl through and through, right?
Yeah. I mean, I really loved living in Northern California. And I'm so thankful that I grew up there because I think it changed a lot of who I am today. I think I would be different if I was raised in Southern California.
Mm-hmm.
But there, like you said, there's a lot of great things about California, but raising a family is not easy here. Doing business is not easy here. Now, the bulk of our stores are still going to be here in California, but it will be wonderful having an office out there, growing out there.
Totally.
And being able to have the family and other people's families out there.
Mm-hmm.
And so in that, it's two-part. We'll have everybody under one roof here in Baldwin Park, and we'll close Irvine.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a big transition. And that's happening in the next few years, right?
Yeah, we've kind of, given it a longer runway so that it's smoother for everybody so they can plan and all of that. And we gave them a lot of notice, because we love them and want to make it as easy as possible. But by 2030, we'll close the Irvine office. So.
Okay.
And that has to suck for California because now you lose the headquarters and all of that business revenue and the tax revenue, and also families that spend money, make money, and then live, work, and play, raise their children, buy properties. And so it's going to be a trickle down effect. And guess what? The people that stay in California, as far as using that as their main hub of where it is that they live, work, and play and spend a majority of their years, are going to be the ones that then shoulder the burden of the losses. And it affects everything because when you lose that type of revenue, when you lose an anchor, when you lose somebody that's making tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars and bringing in that type of revenue, being able to circulate throughout the economy, what it does is it basically kills police, funding for police. It kills funding for a lot of different things. And if you want to see the biggest example of it, go and look at Oakland. And then it starts to trickle up. The state has to then come in and start to try to police what is going on in the community. You have an uptick of homelessness, home prices, property taxes, school revenue. And so everybody suffers when the environment is not conducive for a family, when it's not conducive for business, and when you let the government overreach along with a lot of criminal activity determine what happens inside of the culture instead of letting a great form of capitalism and also put standards in place that prevent things from happening like this because you want to create an environment that's conducive for business, not run businesses out of your state and out of the United States of America. It's funny because people that don't understand business, people that don't understand taxes, people that don't really understand or has never built anything, they were so critical of Trump. But the one thing that you see from Trump is that he's creating an environment because I just recently looked at the fact that General Motors is moving more production inside of the United States of America and completely abandoning Mexico because he's created an environment where they're forced to hire American workers, they're forced to innovate here in America, compete harder, and more importantly, more businesses are starting to bring resources and dollars in order to survive back to the United States of America. But y'all let me know what y'all think inside of the comments. Make sure y'all tap into the Patreon. Link is in the description. Teach Hanley, 40% off your first order, 20% off for life. I love you. I appreciate you. I'm going to holler at you guys later. Peace.